Hey guys, welcome back. More online learning with Miss Gutierrez. We have this week and next week of new lessons, and that's it. You guys, you're like almost to the very end. And then of course there's that whole, final thing. We'll figure that out. Don't worry about that right now. You just got to get through these lessons this week. You guys are going to do so great. Just an update. I'm in a different location. You might be able to tell from my background. I moved to my downstairs office because I figured this might work a little bit better now that I have a new iPad. So I think I might have told you guys that last week whenever we were meeting because I wrote on it during y'all's Zoom call. But I'm loving it, and that's not the coolest part though. The coolest part is that my Apple Pencil came in. And y'all, this thing is amazing. And so I'm going to be using this today. And you can probably already see by looking at my writing on the screen, like world of difference. And maybe you can't or really don't care, in which case I'm sorry that I'm nerding out about this, but it's pretty awesome to me because when you've been trying to work with the technology that you have for, what are we at, 5 or 6 weeks now, and it's just been not great. This is amazing. So also feeling fancy because my daughter, Lila, did my nails. Can y'all see that? I mean, how precious. Yes, no. Kind of sloppy. It's okay. She did her best. It's super cute. Okay, so anyway, here we go. Lesson 113. So in your book, this is page 611. We're going to talk about 2 different topics in this lesson. We're going to talk about adding and subtracting mixed measures. Then we're going to talk about multiplying by powers of 10. Both pretty simple concepts, nothing too crazy. We'll just walk through them, do a couple of examples, and I think you guys will be good to go. So let's start. All right, so we're going to look at, first we're going to talk about adding and subtracting mixed measures. So this is what we're talking about here. Obviously, you're just adding things or subtracting that have mixed measures. So for example, an hour and 40 minutes is a mixed measure because it has units of hours and units of minutes. So that's why we call that specifically, so this part right here is the mixed measure, okay? So that's what we're referring to in that case. So when we're adding or subtracting mixed measures, it's really simple, guys. We just do it the way that we would normally add or subtract. You start on the right-hand side. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and start on the right-hand side and add what we have here. So 40 plus 50 we know is 90. Now, remember, we're talking about minutes here. So 90 minutes. We want to think about, if we're talking about in terms of hours and minutes, is 90 more than a full hour? And the answer would be yes, because a full hour is, that's right, I know you're thinking it, 60 minutes. So if we took out a full hour from there, we would still have 30 minutes remaining. So now you're probably thinking, well, what do I do with that full hour that I just took out? Well, great question. That full hour is going to get carried, just like if we were to carry something like a 10 from regular addition. We usually carry 10s over. We would carry this full hour over to add 1 more hour on top. So now we're adding 1 plus 2 plus 3. That's 3 hours. But remember, we only have the 30 minutes left over here now because we split the 90. So ultimately, our answer is 3 hours and 30 minutes. Okay, so don't forget that carrying action if you need to, always to reevaluate, like, okay, do I have a full hour here that I can carry over? And if not, then you're good, just leave your minutes. All right, let's look at another one. Let's look at some subtraction. So when we're subtracting mixed measures, same rules apply. So we are going to subtract starting on the right-hand side, which here you can already see, trying to take 8 away from 5, definitely not enough there. Okay, so what do? Well, in a normal subtraction problem, if you didn't have enough, what would you do? You would borrow. Now think about this. So normally when we borrow in a regular subtraction problem, we're borrowing 10s. Here, we're borrowing a full foot. So if I take away a foot here, that leaves me with 5 feet, but I'm borrowing a whole foot. So when I add that foot to my 5 inches, that's actually how many inches that I'm adding. 12. Very good. I'm adding 12 inches because that's a full foot. So really here together, these make 17. So now I've got 17 minus 8, which that would give me 9. So now I've got 9 inches. Now go back over here to 5 minus 4, which is 1 foot. So then my answer would be 1 foot, 9 inches. So Main thing here, carrying and borrowing are exactly the same as when you add and subtract, but just be careful because it's not in tens, okay? It's in whatever your units are. So in this case, we looked at feet and inches or hours and minutes. You just got to kind of play it by what your units are, okay? So just adapt to the units, but the process is the same as just regular addition and subtraction. So great job, guys. All right, we're moving right along. Let's look at multiplying by powers of 10. Okay, so here we see, I've kind of set this up so we could go through it. I want you to see what our answers are here so that you can see the pattern for yourself before I just tell you this is how you do it. It's a little bit better for you if you see the pattern on your own because then you're going to remember it better. So that's our goal always. So we've got 1.2 times 10, okay? If you were to type that in your calculator, if you were to work that out, you would get 12. Then 1.2 times 100, if you were to work that out, you would get 120. And 1.2 times 1,000, you would get 1,200. And so then whenever we look at those, we can see, okay, what's actually happening here? And at first glance, it might look like we're just adding zeros on, but let's think about it from the decimal perspective. Okay, so our decimal number that we started at all of these actually, was 1.2. So if we think about, we started here, then going from there to all the rest of these, you can see that it's really just a jump of the decimal. So here, if it started here, is a jump 2. Here, if it started here, it was a jump 3. So this one moved 1, 2, 3 spaces. And if you'll also notice, 10 can be written as 10 to the 1 power, and 100 can be written as 10 to the 2nd power, and 1,000 can be written as 10 to the 3rd power. Okay, sorry, that was a weird pause, but my kids were, baby woke up from the nap, they were screaming, so had to get everybody happy. Okay, so now we are going to finish this up. So you can see that really what we're doing here is just bumping the decimal when we multiply by different powers of 10, because these are all just different powers of 10, okay? So, and you can see that bumping the decimal, it depends on what that exponent is. So that exponent tells us how many spaces to bump the decimal, okay? So let's try that on this problem down here. So we've got 1.2 times 10 to the 3rd power. So that tells us that we are going to bump the decimal 3 places. So we are going to take 1.2 and we're going to bump it 1, 2, 3 spaces. And then in those empty spots, we'll fill in zeros. So that's actually going to give us the number 1,200. Okay, it's that simple. Let's look at another one like that. So what if we want to write 6.2 times 10 squared in standard notation? So we would take that 6.2 and then it's times 10 squared. So remember that number, that exponent tells us how many spaces to bump the decimal. So once we've bumped it twice, we end up with 620. Okay? All right, I think I've got one more for us on here. Yep. So write 1/2 a billion in standard notation. So now that one sounds a little crazy. Sometimes you're going to be given these things where they give you like a number in words like that, okay? And all you have to do is just write it out as like whatever the number they give you. So in this case, 1/2. And then 1/2 billion means 1/2 times a billion. So hopefully you know that a billion is a 1 with 9 zeros behind it. So we're going to write that out. Now remember, 9 zeros, a 1 with 9 zeros would actually be the same thing as 10 to the 9th power. And we like to start from a decimal here. So 1/2, hopefully you know, is equivalent to 0.5. So we would be taking 0.5 and just bumping that decimal 9 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Fill in all those zeros. And if we count them, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 zeros. So that number would look like this. And then we go put our commas in, which that number would be read as 500 million. And that would be it. So you guys are going to do great. Make sure when you add and subtract mixed measures that you carry and borrow just the same as you normally would, but pay attention to those conversion rates, like, 12 inches in a foot and 60 minutes in an hour. And then whenever you multiply by tens, just remember whatever that exponent is, that tells you how many times to move the decimal. Okay? You guys got this. Happy homework.